Today I will be presenting my presentation on the playwright Moliere. We read his play Tartuffe in quarter one, and even though he's respected as one of the greatest playwrights ever, I didn't know anything before this class, so I will be delving into his life and yeah. The essential question I will be discovering throughout this presentation is, how did Moliere's life correlate with the themes of his plays and moreover fit in context to expectations of 17th century France? For a bit of context on Moliere's life, we will first be looking at his early life and adolescence. Moliere's real name is Jean-Baptiste Poquin. He grew up in Paris to a couple of affluent parents. His mom comes from a bourgeoisie family, and his father would become the royal upholsterer for the King of France. Unfortunately, his mother died when he was just 12 years old, which would obviously impact him for the rest of his life. He attended the prestigious College de Clermont, which was a Jesuit institution, which goes to show how influential the church was in just everyday life. When he was 14, he studied law at the University of Orleans and was an aspiring lawyer. Of course, Moliere did not end up becoming a lawyer. He ditched this profession in 1643 when he co-founded his first theater troupe with his future wife, Madeleine Béjart, and her brothers. At about this time, he created his nom de plume, which is just his pen name, Moliere. And he actually did this to avoid bringing shame to his family. Obviously, his family had a lot of pride, being very affluent and connected with the nobles, and theater being having a career in theater at the time was certainly looked down upon. Um, Unfortunately for Moliere, just after 2 years of opening, his company went bankrupt, and he actually found himself in debtor's prison twice. So yeah, and then after his initial failures, he decided to join another troupe and went on the road for 13 years. And during this time, he transitioned from strictly an actor to a playwright and an actor. Um, his first real recognition came in 1653 when his theater troupe became the official theater troupe of the Prince de Conti. The next year, he presented his first written play, Les Étourdis ou Les Contretemps. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry for butchering these French names. In 1656, Moliere released another play, Les Départs Moreau. And in that same year, Moliere's troupe actually lost its funding from Conti, or from the Prince of Conti, because his plays became increasingly polarizing, and Moliere, the figure, became increasingly polarizing because of this. And I will delve into that a little bit later. Despite this fact, King Louis XIV offered Moliere to perform at the Petit Bourbon in 1659, which was basically a gathering of all the nobles and affluent people in French society at the time. And in 1662, he was accepted to perform at the king's court at the Palace of Versailles. And this is when he started to develop his friendship with King Louis XIV. And here's a picture or a painting of Moliere and the of King of France at the time. So during the 17th century France, neoclassicism was a very big ideal, and it seeped into any and everything in the culture, whether that be theater or music or whatever. And so, of like we know Moliere, he always pushed the boundaries with his themes of hypocrisy, the flaws of humanity, etc., and filled his characters with these very extreme themes. One of my personal favorite um, premises of Moliere is in his play L'École des Femmes, which was one of his great successes. It's about a bourgeoisie man who enjoyed the signs of cuckoldry, and then that man ultimately becomes a cuckold. But the most polarizing play was Tartuffe, which debuted in 1664. Um, Going back to the ideas of neoclassicism and Moliere's testing of it, the character Doreen, who is a maid, is presented as the most intelligent and intellectual, which was a big no-no at the time because of her social status. Um, the greatest issue was the hypocrisy of the clergyman Tartuffe and how he's an imposter in the society, which the church was not happy about. And this led to Louis XIV banning the play. Moliere's conflict with the church would not end even after his death. He died February 17, 1673, either on stage or after performing his play, The Imaginary Invalid. Because of such an abrupt death, he wasn't able to renounce his profession publicly and thus didn't receive last rites. This meant the church didn't allow him to be buried in a cemetery nor receive the ceremony he was deserved. All right, so here's the historical significance I found from Moliere's life. From a strictly theater perspective, he's probably the most influential and respected Western comedian or comedic playwright in history. Having written 32 plays, his comedy as well as writing style have influenced generations even today. His plays are still being enacted to this day. From a social perspective, he is somewhat a martyr in the French Revolution and revolution of freedom and expression in France. He fought with the consequences of creativity during a time when creativity was looked down upon. In fact, during the French Revolution, his plays were reenacted with a new vigor never seen before. His gravestone was rightfully moved to its honorary spot after being paraded around the streets of Paris. And here is my works cited, and thank you for watching.